What is up, everybody? Welcome to the very first World Cup recap video here on Touchline Talk. You can expect these all throughout the tournament, Monday through Friday during the group stage, and then another one to recap the weekend action. And then we will obviously change that schedule once we get into the knockout stage. So be sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss any of these as they continue to come out day after day. And as you can see next to me, I have a QR code. You can go scan that code. That'll take you directly to my Substack page where you will get all of my written content. You can become a subscriber, U.S. men's national team match reports. I'm also doing I'm calling them World Cup notebooks, recapping at different points of the tournament. So scan that QR code. That should take you straight to Substack as well. Of course, there's one place to start today. That is the U.S. men's national team returns to the World Cup with a draw against Wales. It's easy to be disappointed in this result considering the way the game went, and the fact that the U.S. had 3 points, looked like it was going to be 3 points, and it ended up only being 1. But there is a bigger story that needs to be told here, which is where I'm going to start, and that is the U.S. could not have executed that game plan much better, even though it didn't result in 3 points. If you look at the tenets of what Greg Berhalter wants to do and what you have to do against Wales, the U.S. did everything on the list. First, the pressure. The high press was really, really effective. It's exactly what Greg Berhalter keeps talking about. Pinning Wales in, making Wales uncomfortable because you know Wales don't want the ball, and controlling a game through that pressure. It doesn't mean you're going to force a bazillion turnovers and create all kinds of scoring opportunities. But the U.S. pinned Wales in and were able to dominate the game the way they want to because of that. And then you look at the goal. How does that goal start? Josh Sargent dropping in, exactly like Greg Berhalter wants his number 9s to do, that hold-up play to get the whole thing going. Then you get Christian Pulisic running at a little bit of a disoriented Wales defense who's trying to compensate for all of the space that's opening up. People are stepping to deal with Pulisic because he's got the ball in the middle of the field and can do just about anything he wants to. So Tim Weah sees the lane, Christian Pulisic plays him through, and there's your goal. All of that stuff is exactly what Greg Berhalter envisions. That's how he wants his team to play. And then on the Wales side of this, as I already mentioned, you know Wales don't want the ball. This was always going to be about 2 things. What could the U.S. do with the ball because they were going to have the possession, and could they keep Wales out of transition? And they were so good with the press, so good at dictating the tempo of the game, that you saw next to nothing from Wales in transition. That was, from a U.S. perspective, that was always my worry in this game, is you don't take your couple opportunities and all of a sudden here comes Gareth Bale running at you. And that just didn't happen. And you look at the individual performances. Weah caused some problems, got the goal. Christian Pulisic had some good moments. Josh Sargent was quiet for large stretches, but did some good things. The midfield, Tyler Adams was the best player on the field for me. Yunus Musa, you saw his ball carrying ability. You can just go down the list. With Weston McKennie had some good moments. Anthony Robinson had some good moments. Matt Turner had the good save when he was called upon. And then there are the center backs. This was the other revelation for me. That's your center back duo moving forward. Tim Reed made Greg Berhalter look really, really bad for keeping him out in the cold so long. He was also one of the best players on the field. But he and Walker Zimmerman together, no, they didn't have a lot of pressure on him, but they were completing their passes. They were helping move the team forward. And positionally, they were really, really good. Tim Ream won aerial duel after aerial duel. They went 80 minutes without making a mistake. And Walker Zimmerman then makes the one mistake. There was no need to dive in. You can't dive in like that. It was just a bad judgment call. But it was one moment that should not ruin everything else those 2 center backs did, and particularly Tim Ream. It is so evident at this point. Those are your 2 center backs moving forward. Those are your best 2 options, even with the mistakes Zimmerman made. And so ultimately, right, it's one mistake that was in the control of the U.S. It wasn't something that Wales forced. It didn't come out of transition. It was an unnecessary decision made by Walker Zimmerman that gave Gareth Bale the opportunity to convert, and he did. Those are the kind of mistakes that can send you home from a World Cup. If this comes down to 2 points or it comes down to a point, that's what you're going to look at is that moment. On the flip side, though, you come away with a point, so you're still in a fine position, and the one mistake you had was fixable. This was an outstanding performance overall from the U.S., and you have to feel really good about this if you're Greg Berhalter. Now, the one thing I will say, that final third is still a major, major issue. Outside of that goal, there was almost nothing. Wayne Hennessy didn't have to make a save. You had the one deflection off of Tim Weah's cross he fired in that nearly ended up in a goal that Josh Sargent then had the follow-up opportunity. Outside of that, there was, and it wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't Greg Berhalter putting the brakes on. They just don't have, and especially when you're trying to break down a low block, because it is worth pointing out that goal came in transition. That was not the U.S. systematically picking apart a Wales defense that is fundamentally sound and is going to sit there in a low block. That is the big concern for me at this point, is you can have all the talented attacking players you want. It's got to actually translate to something on the field. You can have all the possession you want. It's got to actually translate into chances that you then convert and turn into goals. And that's not happening for the U.S. right now. You needed that second goal to put this game away. They never came particularly close to getting it, which leaves you in that situation where one decision, one moment, it could have been a moment of brilliance from Gareth Bale. In this case, it was a poor decision from Walker Zimmerman. Cost you 2 points. But overall, you have to feel really, really good coming out of this game. Regardless of how this thing goes moving forward, that was not the same team that showed up in those warm-up games. That was a team capable of causing some real problems in this tournament. It should have been 3 points. I do think the U.S. were the better team overall. But Wales found a way to sort of get themselves back into the game. They got one opportunity, they took advantage. And I kind of always thought this game was going to end in a draw coming in, so I wasn't particularly surprised. I didn't expect the U.S. to look that good, though. That is ultimately my takeaway. There were a lot more positives than negatives. You got 2 games to continue to build on that and really show you are one of the best 2 teams in this group. Because so far, they certainly look like it. Now, you got England next. We'll see what happens there. Speaking of England, it is a 6-2 win over Iran to start for the 3 Lions. Don't need to dissect this one too much. The scoreline speaks for itself. The 2 things I do want to mention, though. Well, actually, 3 things. Yes, it's terrific. England scored 6 goals. There were also a lot of kind of prototypical Gareth Southgate England goals. Set pieces, crosses. It wasn't so much this breathtaking attack where you feel like they were really unleashed. At least that's not how it came across to me. Scoring 6 is terrific at any point. It's a really good sign for this team moving forward. But I can't sit there and say this game changes the way I feel about England. It answers my questions about the conservative streak Southgate has and their ability to turn it on and attack when they need to. And a lot of that has to do with point number 2, which was the defending from Iran was on some of those goals, particularly, Saka's just allowed to continue to dribble. It was a mess. And so I can't put too much stock in this 6-goal performance. They looked good. They're certainly capable of winning this tournament. I felt that way before this game. I felt that way after this game. My questions have not been answered, and they cannot be answered until England play some of the better teams in this tournament. The U.S. is going to be a better test of this, and then there are going to be teams, theoretically, that provide the real true test when you talk about quarterfinals, semifinals, things like that. The one thing I do want to point out from this game, though, as much as I'm inclined to just dismiss this kind of, and chalk it up more to England got some set pieces and kind of created some goals the way they always do, and were gifted a few by the defending they were going up against. It's a really good thing for England. Some of the players who scored goals in this game. Saka gets a brace. Grealish. Marcus Rashford. It wasn't just Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling. And that has been one of the biggest problems for this team. You can go down the list of all these attacking players that are terrific. The only ones scoring goals for England were defenders, Kane, and Sterling. And so to get these guys off to a good start, to get goals from Saka, to get Rashford involved, to get Jack Grealish involved, you can go down the list. Those guys are going to be the ones that make the difference. You know what you're getting from Kane. Sterling has been really good in an England shirt. Harry Maguire was involved in the attack through set pieces, nearly scored a goal himself, played a role in a goal. You know what you're getting from your defenders. Luke Shaw also contributed to a goal with a good cross. You know what you've got from the back. You know what you've got at the very front. The question is, can they get any help? Because they should. And also Jude Bellingham had a really good game and got a goal. Those are the kind of things that take England from being a team that can make a final, can make a semifinal, to a team that can win in a tournament. Again, I need to see it against somebody that plays better defensively and offers some kind of resistance. But that is a really, really good sign for Gareth Southgate's team. Then, Netherlands beat Senegal 2-0 in a game that I would argue is closer than the scoreline makes it appear. Both teams had opportunities. It was a fun back-and-forth game for a while. Ultimately, the Netherlands get 2 late goals to win this one. Don't have too much here. Maybe this goes Senegal's way if Sadio Mane is on the field. This also just confirms what I believe, which is these are the 2 best teams in the group, and the Netherlands are going to finish on top. But I'm not worried about Senegal because of this at all. In fact, I'm even a little bit more confident than I was before this game that they're going to be the second team to get out of this group. This is just not a big deal at the end of the day. As long as you take care of business. That's always the qualifier when you only have 3 games, right? You actually have to do what you're supposed to in the rest of them, and you should be fine. The one thing I do want to highlight, Cody Gakpo was really good in this game. He got a goal. He was causing all kinds of issues. His production in the Eredivisie has been ridiculous for PSV. And there were all these links about him getting this big move to, a Premier League club or one of the bigger clubs in the world. That didn't happen. That will happen, and it will happen soon. He was really, really good. He's incredibly fun to watch. If you haven't seen him play, check out this Netherlands team. And a team that, Memphis Depay is still kind of working his way back. The front line is not all that inspiring. So bringing in a guy like Cody Gakpo who is capable of carrying an attack like that adds a completely different dimension to this Dutch team, and you saw it in this game. And Edouard Mendy did not look great on the second goal. You can point to the fact he's not getting regular minutes for Chelsea at the moment. He just hasn't had a good stretch here. And so that is something worth monitoring for Senegal. I wanted to mention as well is I came into this tournament, months ago looking at the Mendy, Koulibaly, Mane trio and saying that is an incredible. You've got a goalkeeper, a center back, and a winger or general attacker because Mane can play through the middle who are truly world class. Some of the best players in the world at their positions. And Koulibaly hasn't had a great season. Mendy has really struggled. Mane's not there. So it's a different conversation for the Senegal team. So that is worth monitoring is kind of what kind of Edouard Mendy does Senegal get moving forward. And then finally, want to touch on the first game we had on Sunday. Ecuador get the 2-0 win over Qatar. It could have been 3, it could have been 4. Enter Valencia could have had a hat trick. We got our introduction to semi-automatic VAR. That was an experience. Ecuador were good. I've said this before, I'm really curious about this team, and I love the young core that they have. To me, the story here, though, is Qatar goes, years planning for this, preparing this group. I really expected them to be difficult to play against and to cause problems, even if they're not going to get a point in this tournament, even if they're not going to win a game. I expected them to put up a fight and to be impressive and kind of earn respect by the way they play. And that was from the goalkeeping mistakes and the indecision, the lack of organization, the careless mistakes. Ecuador just walked on to, I mean, Qatar were interesting for about 5 minutes and Ecuador took control of the game, and that was that. You had the one moment right before halftime that you could have gotten a goal and made it the game. But this was not a 2 goal game. This was more like a 4 that just happened to end up 2 and may end up hurting Ecuador because of that goal difference. We'll see how the rest of this plays out. But I expected more from Qatar. You got 2 games to turn it around and change the narrative here a little bit, but that was a rough introduction to the World Cup. And I did expect better. I expected Ecuador to win this game, but I thought they were going to have to work a lot harder for it than they ended up having to. So there you go. You've got a 1-1 draw between Wales and the U.S. England get a big win. Netherlands beat Senegal, and Ecuador get the win over Qatar. Your first 4 games of the World Cup. Again, I'll be doing this consistently, so be on the lookout every single day for these new quick recap videos. You can go hit this QR code to get to my Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well. I'll see you next time.